What is up, everybody? Welcome into episode number 32 of the Full Coverage Football Show. We are live here on our Facebook page. That's fb.me/FCFS pod for those of you listening to the replay. If you're watching the replay on YouTube, welcome. This is the first time that you get to watch us on YouTube. Thanks for joining the show. Hopefully you've watched us before, listened to us before. Show's a lot of fun. We got a good show for you tonight. In a little bit, we're going to bring on my co-host here, Mr. Drew Ward, shortly. But first, something for everyone to look at. Across the bottom of the screen here, these are our sponsors. Check them out. Simple as that. If you like this show, like our Facebook page. That's fb.me/FCFS pod. That way you can become a part of the show, know what's up with it, what we're doing. We're going to try to be more proactive on the page, maybe do a little something extra during the week. And for those of you listening on the audio version, we are going to try this week to describe some things. So we got video coming up, we got pictures, but we will describe it for you. And that's right. Not only can you see our beautiful faces, but you can hear our beautiful baritone voices on audio on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Pods, Google Pods, you name it. If you know where you can find a podcast, we're there, baby. We're everywhere. The FCFS family's taking over. The Full Coverage Football Show is going everywhere. And tonight, we're going full coverage because we're talking all sports. We're going to go around the NFL. We're staying true to our football roots. It's a tag in my head. I keep seeing something bouncing around. But anyway, we're going to go around the NFL. Then we're going to talk MLB. We're going to talk some COVID-19, and we're going to talk some Bubba Wallace. We got a full show of fun. But before we get into any of that, we got to bring on the star of the show, Mr. Drew Ward. What is up, brother?
Good evening, my friend. How's things going?
Can't complain.
Good.
We're going to talk some sports tonight.
Yeah, I absolutely am. Hello, everybody. I'm just excited to be back on, man. Let's rock and roll.
We are keeping the sports world entertained here. It's a big burden on our shoulders, but we're ready for it. So absolutely. We're going to start the show by going around the NFL, and we're going to start it with a big breaking story from last week. Jamal Adams wants to be traded, and this week we find out he hates Adam Gase. You surprised he hates Adam Gase?
No, I feel like kind of everybody does. Adam Gase loves Adam Gase. I mean, here's the deal.
That he does.
Let's not act like Jamal Adams is not a pocket in this whole situation, too.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's the deal. You don't just demand a trade and say, hey, here's the list of the teams I want to be traded to when he still has, 3 years left on his contract or something ridiculous. He wants to be paid. He's going to get paid. The Jets are like, I mean, why would the Jets want to get rid of Jamal Adams unless you're getting a ransom back?
Exactly.
He wants to go to the Cowboys, who apparently just have unlimited money. Listen, I think he's kind of handled it terribly, but this is athletes in 2020, man, and you're seeing some NFL guys try to go the NBA route,
mm-hmm.
And just try to really strong arm, a franchise. It's definitely harder to do in football, of course, because of course, a guy, LeBron James, in the sport where you only have 5 people on the floor at a time, I mean, has a bigger impact. And just the NBA as a league is just their players are way ahead of any other league as far as they kind of run the league to a sense.
Absolutely, dude.
But yeah, Jamal Adams, great player, not handling it well. But I again, you're going to see more and more of this, in my opinion, moving forward.
Listen, Jamal wants out of there. He doesn't like Adam Gase. There's so many players that don't like their head coach.
There's no ways to go about it.
Either way, New York Jets fix this problem because if you pay that man, most of the problems go away. I don't care who you hate. If you're getting a $14 million a year contract, you're like, yeah, I'm cool. I can deal with this. And then he can look at Adam Gase and use the Adam Gase line and say, you know what? I'm rich too. Enough about that, though. We brought this up 2 weeks in a row. Let's continue on with Around the NFL. And today, Hall of Fame game and the enshrinement ceremony have been canceled. The enshrinement ceremony was scheduled to take place on August 8th, and we were going to see former NFL Commissioner Paul Tagliabue, NFL Films co-founder Steve Sable, former Giants executive George Young, former coaches Jimmy Johnson and Bill Cowher, and former players Troy Polamalu, Steve Hutchinson, Edgerrin James, Isaac Bruce, and Steve Atwater. They were all going to be inducted in the Hall of Fame. Now they have to wait a year.
A lot of guys we grew up on right there.
Yeah. I mean, this is the heart of our childhood, basically.
Sure.
I mean, getting inducted. And it's not surprising they chose to do this. And
Nope.
the big reason for it is, people are like, oh, they could have played the game in front of an empty stadium. Yeah, they could have played the game that way. But that also brings two teams to training camp a week early, and then you don't need to do that with them anymore. So if you cancel that game, you let them all come July 28th. And a big part of Hall of Fame weekend is meeting the fans, and for the fans to go up there and meet their heroes who are going in, and for it to all be a celebration. So to push this back a year, that's the right move, in my opinion. What say you?
Here's the deal. We kind of already had a feeling that the first thing cut was going to be this game, and then the preseason down to 2 games is the next step. If things continue to progress the way they are. Of course, the NFL comes out today. Goodell comes out today, and he says, hey, look, it's business as usual. But it hits home here, of course, because, we're right down the road from Canton. And, that game, like you said, the game itself is terrible. Nobody plays. But again, it's the fan experience. It's more of the guys getting inducted into the Hall of Fame. I mean, that's the night, the speeches. Listen, we're dealing with different things right now. We've seen the virus spiking and things, and we're just living in a different world right now. We're just going to have to accept it. If we want to end up playing football, excuse me, here in the fall, then we're going to have to start to cut things out and go from there.
Absolutely. And we will talk about that later. We will bring that up, but yeah, for the preseason, we'll talk preseason real quick. Cut it down to 2 games. Carry bigger rosters, carry bigger practice squads. That way you're not cutting as many players. Your rookies still have a chance to prove themselves. If you really want to play this season, apparently this Jameson's kicking in a little quick. I'm slurring my words already. But if you really want to get the season going, carry the bigger rosters. Don't mess around with the games that don't matter. But I understand why you have to play at least a couple of them. You need to get your team out on the field, see what they can do before you start playing for real, and then people get hurt.
And then they need to it needs to geographically fit what they're doing. Your 2 preseason games, you need to make a Cleveland and Detroit, or
the barge.
Yeah, we'll go back for the barge. I mean, but they have to figure that out, because that makes the most sense. And again, there's really only one preseason game. Preseason game 3 is really the only preseason game anyway. Trust me, the players aren't going to be upset about only playing 2 preseason games. It's just, again, we're just got to deal with it. I think right now we're at 4 preseason games, but I think you will see here within the next few weeks, that probably more than likely be announced as well, just going down to 2. But again, the NFL, they're not bending whatsoever. Roger Goodell's like, business as usual. Let's roll. And for me and you, we're like, hell yeah, let's roll. We're ready to do it. But I just have concern, man. Yeah, no doubt.
I mean, you hit it on the head when talking Roger Goodell. It's business as usual, because we all know, we've talked about this before, where October is pink for breast cancer month, and NFL tries to do all these things, but we all know the one color the NFL really cares about is green. And they make money during those preseason games because they charge full price for them. And then all the season ticket holders get screwed and sell them on ticket sites, resale sites, where I buy them for $1 and go see 500 guys that will be selling insurance in 2 weeks.
Correct.
And I still enjoy it. It's just a nice night to go out to the stadium, enjoy it. But it's absolutely different this year. And they are trying, at least, according to Roger Goodell, to start training camp on time on July 28th. So by the end of July, we should have baseball, basketball, and training camps of the NFL all coming back. And we'll talk about that a little later. Will it happen? We shall see. But as we're talking to NFL, there was another big story. Big Ben Roethlisberger missed a lot of last season, and we got to see lovely Mason Rudolph play, and we all know how that ended up. But Ben Roethlisberger came out with a big admission this week on ESPN. Let me pull up this article so I can make sure I had it right. He says his faith helped him with dealing with his porn addiction and his alcohol addiction. This surprised you that Big Ben's addicted to porn and alcohol?
No.
Same.
Surprise you?
Not at all. I've met the guy. I met him in college. So I know what kind of guy he was when he was 21, and nothing this guy has had come out happen has surprised me one bit. So for him to be addicted to porn and alcohol means that he was drunk one night, probably yanking it, and the wife caught him, and he's like, "Oh, I'm addicted," because that's usually how these stories come out. But good for him, for his faith to get together. I mean, whatever, Ben. Like,
I mean, here's the deal.
Good.
I feel like Ben, from a PR image, has certainly tried to right some wrongs, especially with the rape allegations and the things we know happened back in Miami or whatnot. But to think of the way that everything went down with Antonio Brown, the way that teammates have kind of said that he hasn't always been the best teammate.
Yep.
I think he's trying to save face. You do have to give him some credit, because Ben does go on the radio every week during the season, and he's usually pretty open and honest, man. So, listen, hey, it is what it is, man. Ben, I mean, if him getting off his chest and trying to be more relatable to people, I guess might be helping his image. I honestly don't know. I mean, I just don't understand the benefit, unless for him personally that was something he had to get off his chest. And if that's the case, then they could.
Yeah. I mean, I'll joke about it. I'll say stupid comments, obviously, like I always do. But yeah, good for him if he needed to get off his chest and he feels his faith has really come in handy and got him to get off the wagon, for say. I could have stopped to get off, but probably shouldn't have done that. But anyway, good for Ben. I hope things are good, because I hope he gets his stuff together, because the Steelers need him, and I want to see Myles Garrett sack him. And I'm going to end it there, because good for Ben. Moving on to another story. We're keeping it quarterbacks in the AFC North. We're going to talk Lamar Jackson. Chris Sims of 24/7 Sports said that by the end of the season, 2021 season, it's possible that Lamar Jackson will be the best quarterback in the NFL. What do you think about that statement right there?
I mean, unless Russell Wilson and Patrick Mahomes get hit by a bus, I don't see that happening. Listen, Lamar Jackson had a great season. Lamar Jackson, I sat here and shit on Lamar Jackson multiple times over these airwaves. I mean, you were a Lamar Jackson fan. I wasn't. Listen, he's been fantastic, but at the same time, we're talking about Russell Wilson and Patrick Mahomes are just purely dominant quarterbacks. Russell Wilson has the abilities to be shifty. He never gets hit. He's efficient. I mean, Lamar Jackson's improving his accuracy, which is something that you and I both know is very difficult to do once you make the step to the next league. Yeah, we're watching some Lamar Jackson. All right. Well, I mean, listen, that offense, the reason he's so successful in that offense is because their ability to run the ball. Their play action and what they do is what makes him successful. You couldn't ask him to drop back and throw it 30 times a game consistently. I just don't think you can do that. I think what Harbaugh has done in Baltimore it's really impressive. He basically swallowed all his pride, went from, not a system where they were okay with running with Joe Flacco stand back there, and they've changed everything. And they've built that offense around Lamar Jackson, and he's truly special. But come on, we're talking about. I mean, I think you agree that I think Patrick Mahomes and Russell Wilson kind of stand on their own tier.
Listen, I am 100% with you, unless Mahomes decides to retire and do something else, or Russell Wilson decides to start a music career with his wife or something. It's not going to happen. However, to play devil's advocate, I will say it is possible. And it's mainly because, and you'll see it right here, Russell Wilson can't do this. Patrick Mahomes can't do that. They're shifty, but they can't run as well. What the thing is that can separate him is he can get better at throwing. They can't get better at doing this the way he can. Because I think Pat Mahomes would get destroyed, and Russ isn't that big as is. He would probably get hurt as well. So if he improves as a thrower. It's a possibility, but man, I'm not buying it. I just can't.
And
I mean,
so, not to jump it, but Russell Wilson doesn't take hits, right? Russell Wilson doesn't. I don't know how he does it because he's clearly mobile. I mean, we see it. He's not Lamar Jackson, Mike Vick, Super Nintendo shit, right? But Russell Wilson doesn't take hits. Lamar Jackson at times takes a pounding. And again, you can say that you can improve your passing, but we do not see a huge spike in accuracy numbers at the next level. You just don't see it. So while he can improve some ways, I don't think he's ever going to be on the same level passing the football. And I also think over time, taking all those hits and nicks, man, that adds up. We'll see. He's phenomenal. But I think as far as longevity, clearly, I mean, although we're talking about Russell Wilson's clearly older, Patrick Mahomes still young, but I'm thinking of longevity. I just don't know how long you can continue to play that way. And when you are forced to, when your game and the body forces you to kind of change and become more of a pocket passer, are you going to be able to handle that with some of the accuracy issues you have and things like that?
You're absolutely right, where accuracy doesn't improve at the next level. Never has. And this offense that's built around him is his biggest benefactor in being the quarterback he is right now, because he's got multiple tight ends who are talented. He's got shifty wide receivers who can get yak yards. And they've got J.K. Dobbins. They've got Mark Ingram. They've got Justice Hill, I still believe. I mean, they've just got so many running backs they can put in that backfield with him. You don't know where that ball is going to go. Jim Harbaugh has done an excellent job of pulling back the Joe Flacco drop, 5-step drop, get rid of the ball, or hand it off offense, and moved it to something that fits his quarterback completely. And this is something that you don't see in enough NFL offenses, where guys actually come in and you say, hey, we got this guy, he's a square, but we're going to put him in a round hole. This is a round hole, going in a round hole, and that's why it's working. Can he get better? Yes, and that's scary to think because he's damn good. But Pat Mahomes is the best quarterback on this planet, probably in this universe, solar system, wherever, how far you want to go. There's no one who can touch Pat Mahomes right now on this planet, at least.
Yeah, one other thing about the Baltimore Ravens is clearly they get what they do well. And they showed it in the draft. When they went out and got J.K. Dobbins, they understand what Lamar Jackson does well, and they understand his limitations. And the fact that you can run Mark Ingram out there and also spell him with J.K. Dobbins, again with Mark Andrews and the speed and athleticism at the wide receiver position, that offense is tailor-made for him and good for Baltimore within a 2-year span, really within a year and a half span, just throwing the whole playbook out the window and saying, we're going to start from match because we got a guy who's unique and we need to figure out how to use him instead of just forcing him into a scheme of being a drop back passer, which I guarantee you 80% of the other coaches in the National Football League would have done.
100% dead on. Absolutely, they would have. I want to thank everyone for watching right now. Please check out our sponsors that are scrolling across the bottom of the page and help us out by commenting. You can comment on the Facebook page if you're watching live. Go ahead and comment if you're watching the re-air or listening on one of the audio versions. Go ahead and comment on Facebook at FCFS Pod, on Twitter at FCFS Pod. Hit me up at Somerville CLE or hit Drew up on Twitter at Detroit Dave 7. Talk sports. We're here to talk sports anytime. We like to talk sports. It's enjoyable to us, and that's what makes our show fun. And moving on to something else. Like Drew predicted last week, the MLB got it together, and they will be back as of now, July 1st, for what they're calling Spring Training 2.0. And they got this together with a package that includes 60 games, 40 within your division, 10 against each team, and then 20 interleague games. And they're doing a thing that I hate, but we'll see how it works. Where in extra innings, each half inning, the batter who made the last out will start at second base. This is to get games done quicker, but that's not what baseball is about. I hate that. And I've heard that the DH will be used in both leagues, which is good for me because I don't need to see a pitcher hit unless it's someone who can actually swing the bat, which is like what, 3 pitchers, maybe.
Yes. Yeah. Of course, I've had a lot of thoughts about MLB again this week because we said that they'd be back, right?
Yep, you nailed it.
So let me give you an example. So for a team like the Cleveland Indians, right? They get to play the dumpster ass fire that is the Detroit Tigers 10 times out of this 60-game season. Okay? I get what they're doing. I also don't understand. The problem is with baseball here is what are we going to do as far as their roster sizes go in this taxi system? So for those that don't know, with baseball right now, the minor leagues are pretty much abolished, right? There are no minor leagues essentially. So with the scare of COVID, and as clearly as we know, we've seen it with golf, we've seen these spikes all over. People are going to test positive.
Yep.
So the thing that the league needs to understand, and I'm sure they do, I mean, although Rob Manfred hasn't done a lot to give us hope, but
worst owner or worst the worst commissioner. Boy, I cannot talk tonight.
It's fun, man. You should get yourself a drink. Hey, but no, listen, here's the deal. So if players begin to get sick on the roster, they're going to actually have like a traveling taxi team that can fill in and play. And at the same time, the interesting thing to me is your taxi team isn't really getting everyday reps and pitches, and they're not seeing the minors. They're not seeing live action. So it could be crippling to one of these teams in a 60-game season to lose a Mike Trout or an Aaron Judge or, one of these players, and they have to go into a 14-day quarantine, and then you're taking like one of me or you off of a bus that's basically been driving around hammering beers for 4 months. So it's just, to me, it'll be very interesting just to see how this product's going to look, first of all, with really no spring training games. Teams, for the most part, having spring training at their home ballparks. I just want to see how MLB handles it. It's going to be super interesting to me just thinking of the taxi system and what they're doing as far as how these guys are going to come up. How big is this system going to be able to be? And my other question is if you're an owner, and we see this all the time, teams purposely holding guys back, young players back, because they get the extra year on the back end of things. Now, that's not eligible this year. So are you also going to see teams that are going to push up the younger guys, my team potentially, to play the Casey Mizes, to play the Matt? I mean, are you going to see that as well? Because they're not going to lose that year eligibility, because we see it all the time. Guys are ready to come up and play, and unfortunately, ball clubs hold them back for the simple fact that they want an extra year of them on the team without having to negotiate or go to arbitration.
Yep. So this taxi squad they have, it's 3 players that will travel with them, but one of them has to be a catcher. So you're going to have basically 2 guys. You're probably going to have a pitcher, a guy who you think is a utility player, and then a catcher. So the thing with this is, if you end up testing positive for COVID, you have to pass 2 tests. You have to have 2 negative tests before you're allowed to come back after the 14-day period. So to have just those 3 players, it's definitely going to be something interesting to watch to see how they work with it. Because having 3 players with one a pitcher, probably one a utility player, and one a catcher, there's going to be some juggling of rosters that it's going to determine who will go far this season, who will be able to get into the postseason and make noise. And I mean, when you're talking about your Tigers, the good thing for them is this year they probably weren't going to win 50 games. Now no one will win 50 games, so they're right in with everyone else.
This is the only way the Tigers weren't going to lose 100 games.
They'll play 100 games.
I know exactly. That's the only way they weren't going to lose 100 games.
It's perfect. I mean, I hope this happens. I hope baseball does end up coming back, because on its last leg. It is on life support. We've talked about it multiple weeks in a row now that baseball needs to get it together and figure out how to bring in the average fan. And now with no sports, even though by the time they come back, NBA will be ramping up and NFL training camps will be beginning.
Baseball should be playing right now. They should be playing right this second.
You know, these players, they're in shape. They're ready to go. And baseball, for me, I was able to play it, no problem. Baseball is the easiest sport to get completely ready for. I mean, maybe the pitchers need to stretch out their arms, but I'm sure they've all been working out at home. They've been stretching out the arms.
The more the pitchers.
It's definitely just the pitcher. Yeah. So you think about baseball right now, like how long ago was the off season? We don't remember what happened. Like I was looking over some rosters. Cole Hamels is on the Atlanta Braves. I didn't remember that. Did you?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
Then yesterday on Twitter, you're looking at the Rangers' new ballpark, which everyone is saying looks like an old warehouse. I forgot the Rangers even had a new ballpark because the ballpark in Arlington was 25 years old or so.
Which I've attended multiple ball games at. When I lived in Dallas, there we would, my wife and I went, because a lot of where I worked, we'd get tickets from the members, or whatever. So nice ballpark. And then all of a sudden they decide, oh wait, we live in Dallas, Texas. It gets hot as shit. We need a retractable roof, or at least a roof in general. And so then you dig back in taxpayers' dollars to try to, build a stadium. And for those of you that, so they had a side-by-side picture earlier that I saw on social media, and it was like the plan, right? So here was the plan of what it was supposed to look like. And it had like nice fountains and a nice walking path. And then the actual picture of it is just like, it looks like a damn warehouse.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, that the stadium, they didn't need a new stadium. But I get, see, the thing is, to me is MLB's missing the boat again. Just because you build a retractable roof doesn't mean people are showing up for Wednesday day games. Mm-hmm. People got to work.
Absolutely.
I mean, we can't just show up for Wednesday day games. So even if it's hot as hell in the middle of summer, no one's coming to a day game in the middle of the week.
And the people who can come to those day games, the kids were off school. I mean, it's not like, back in the day, probably in the late 70s, early 80s, you could send a kid on a bus, go downtown. I mean, I've talked to people who've done it. They've gone downtown as like 12-year-old kids.
You would get arrested.
They would go downtown and watch games. I got an 11-year-old. I can't imagine sending my 11-year-old downtown by herself. Be like, hey, go see the game, honey. It'll be fun. She'd be like, ah. And then, I'll absolutely be arrested. I mean, it's a totally different landscape. So that's when those games worked. And this is why the plan where we talked about where they don't play on Sundays, they play Saturday doubleheaders. The plan that you and I have talked about on this show and in our text messages, that's why that is something that could work. Because if you're playing at 1 o'clock on Saturday and you got 2 games and you're done by 7 p.m., you're controlling Saturday not only on TV, but more people are going to want to go to those games and enjoy it.
That's true. My mother-in-law says that. Okay. She's got a lot of truth to that.
You're only allowed to do the things your wife says. It's the one
once my kids get older, then I can be like, hey, I gotta take them to the ballpark. It's the experience type thing, and then I can start doing things like that.
And that's where it sucks for you right now with no minor league, because 10 minutes from your house, you have a single A baseball team, which is great for kids to learn baseball. It's not something they have to pay 100% attention to. There's a lot of other activities going around. It's just a great place for you to learn baseball, learn how to become a fan, learn how the game works before you get to the bigger stadiums. When you got a stadium that's 3,000 and then eventually you take them to a place where it's 40,000 packed, which hopefully happens for both of our teams again one day, that's a great thing to learn. And that's why baseball needs to fix their entire system here. Get the minor leaguers back on, because these are the kids who make $800 a month, live with families that are around the area, and they're the ones who play for the love of the game, and these are the ones who carry on baseball's legacy. So baseball, you're going to get the majors back on, but you need to find a plan for the minors as well.
And we said it last week. I mean, you have to – the problem is nobody's playing, right? Mm-hmm. So no young people are playing. So you have to interact, kids with players – social media wise, during games, after games, before games, try to get that experience, because again, I remember when we lived in Myrtle Beach, my wife and I, we had a single A team down there, and you could spend $8 and sit front row, third base line.
Yep.
And just go enjoy a ball game. And so the fact that, and the thing is, there will eventually be a minor league back in baseball.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you're going to see single A. I really don't. You might see a double in triple A. I just think that they're going to try to eliminate, a lot of it, and you could just see triple A. I just don't know. And again, as we saw, the draft is usually 175 rounds, and this year I believe it was 6 or 7 or something. So it's definitely less guys coming in this year, as we know, but we'll be interested to see how the minor leagues look in 3-5 years from now.
And that's where the developmental leagues, the Arizona Fall League, leagues like that, you're going to see more players go there and play. And then you're absolutely right. Single A teams could be eventually phased out. I hope that doesn't happen.
Sure.
Because it's not only an entertainment value for families, it's a great place for these kids who are 18, 19 years old to really learn what it's like to travel. Yeah, you're traveling mostly on bus. It's not like you're traveling on the fancy plane of the majors, but you're learning how to be a pro. And each one of those steps is helpful. That's why baseball has a chance to be great, because it's allowing players to learn how to be pros immediately. Or gradually rather than immediately, like the NBA, the NFL, where these kids come in 19 years old, 21 years old, 20 years old in the NFL, and they're thrown right into the spotlight. And that's why you see a lot of the issues with off the field things, because these kids haven't fully matured. Baseball gives them a chance to fully mature.
You hit it on the head. The thing with baseball is you get drafted and nobody knows who the hell you are for 3 or 4 years. Even the best guys, you don't know who they are for a year and a half, 2 years. Just for some of the reasons that we touched on. And it's hard for baseball because the minor league system, yes, it's great. But again, another issue is teams strangleholding talented players just for control. And I guess that's a topic for a different day. Maybe, I guess we're going all around sports, but baseball, you and I have talked a lot about baseball and just how they have shit the bed with this whole situation. And we should be watching baseball right now, and they should be drawing in fans that are desperate for sports right now. And they should have a month ahead of the NBA. And they should, and again, they gotta figure out some ways to, because baseball is coming back doesn't mean the sport's not dying still.
Mm-hmm. You're absolutely right with that. This is their chance now. They've got to get it together. They've got to develop not only the short-term plan, but what works best to bring back the average fan long-term. I love baseball. You love baseball, but it's not about us. It's more about the average fan. Your Tigers, they're terrible right now, but you're also looking ahead to where, coming up next year, had they gotten a full year, next year could have been a real fun year, because you're going to have all these kids coming up who have had some time in the minors to play, who have had time to develop, and there's all kinds of potential.
Right. Well, that's the thing. At that point, they become watchable again. Mm-hmm. Right. And the thing is, they're continuing not to get into mine, but the Tigers have built up a nice plethora of young arms in the minors. They finally just drafted kind of a positional player, and they actually drafted 6 positional players in this draft. But you're right. Because they're going to have another terrible season. They'd have another high draft pick. You're starting to build pieces. I think that you still deal with Michael Fulmer. You still have deals to make. Matt Boyd could be dealt still. Mm-hmm. But they're starting to tear it to the bare bones. I don't know if Al Avila knows what the hell he's doing, but we'll see, man. But you're right. That is the point where I would start getting excited about baseball again, because listen, man, they're terrible. They're terrible. And I look down their lineup, and I don't know who the hell these guys are. And maybe that's my bad for not digging my heels in with baseball, but it is a marathon, man. It's hard to keep up with.
It can be sometimes, absolutely. And they got 60 games this year. It's going to be a sprint.
It is going to be fun.
It's going to make things really fun, because every game is going to matter. And no, they shouldn't eventually just cut it down to 60 total games. I'm not with that plan. I'm cool with the 162, but you got to do the 162 right, where they actually matter.
Yeah, I don't like 60, but I don't like 162 either. I think we could maybe meet in the middle somewhere. But
Like 144, like they did the 1 year, the strike year, I think.
yeah, or even $1.25,
Mm.
just something like that. But we'll see. I mean, that's a long season, man.
It is.
And if you think about it, for pitchers and catchers, they get like 2 months off if you make
Yeah.
a deep playoff run. So, and that's a tiring, just lots of travel and pretty boring stuff. if you're just like, if you're a reliever that's going like one every 4 nights, it's just like, well, here we go again.
Absolutely. So baseball, hopefully back. July 23rd, 24th is their opening day. Training camp for the NFL, July 28th. The last day of the month, I believe July 31st is what the NBA is looking at. However, just when we've built you up, we're going to bring you back down. With COVID-19 numbers rising, will these sports actually happen at the end of next month?
I like the NBA's chances. Now, again, not to get crazy into numbers, but like you look at numbers like for today example, the state of New Jersey just came out and said that they need to report like 1,800 more deaths that they hadn't reported previously. So numbers can be skewed from an aspect of where you're looking at, because death rates have gone way down, right? But things are changing and people are going to get sick. Like Kim said earlier, it's inevitable that people are going to get sick. So the PGA Tour, and we spoke about this a little bit yesterday via text. Anytime the commissioner of a sport comes out and talks, it's typically not something great when it's just random pop up. Hey, I'm gonna do a press conference in an hour. But the thing I liked about that, what Jay Monahan did, is he said, "Listen, we're 2.5 weeks into this thing, and we've tested so many people, and we've had 4 positive tests. People are going to get sick."
Yep.
The other thing that's concerning is Monday, Ricky Elliott, who's Brooks Koepka's caddy, he got tested and he was fine. In Wednesday, he's got it. And all these people got tested, while they got on property. So people are going to get sick, and it's just to the point it's almost like there's a concrete number, I believe, in commissioner that what they deem to be a pandemic within the sport, as far as their athletes are concerned. So whether it's, I mean, what happens if the Lions have an outbreak of 25 players?
Mm-hmm.
Then what the hell do we do?
If you're getting 25 at training camp, it's going to carry on to a lot more people. You have all the coaches. This is where the NFL has the biggest worry, because you have the most amount of people. You look at some of these college football teams, 23 players in Clemson, you're like 13 in Texas, and it's going to spread because it's hard. These kids are in dorms. It's going to spread that way. Usually in the NFL, when you're at training camp, you're in dorms. It's a dorm situation, but you have 100 people on your roster at a time, plus coaches, plus training staff, plus front office people. It's going to be really hard. So if you want sports, to me, it's simple. Wear a mask. Don't care if you're sick or not. It's not just about you. Keep socially distant. Wash your hands. Follow these simple rules. Yeah, it sucks we all have to follow them. But if you just do that, there's a chance that these numbers will drop, that we can all get healthy. We can hopefully work towards getting better faster and getting ready for, when there finally is some sort of antidote against it, and we're able to finally just move on and away from it. And hopefully 2021 will be a better year. But if you want sports, stay safe. Wash your hands. Wear your mask.
It's tough, because just kind of like, this is just kind of like the economy. We can't just be shut down forever, right?
Yeah.
But we also saw that we're a bunch of damn animals who can't listen to people either. So it's tough, because you can't just shut everything down. And if you're sports, you can't start, stop. You can't.
Yep.
So the deal is and this is my biggest worry is, say we get through the MLB season, then boom, fall hits, we get a pandemic, you don't have a postseason. And what the hell is it all for?
Exactly.
But yes, that's I mean, you can't have, and this is why, again, I stood with Jay Monahan yesterday, because he said, listen, always says we have 4 people test positive. People are going to test positive. But he says, we can't shut down the tournament now because then we're done. Like, you can't just start and stop and start. And the logistics don't work. When you're talking about NFL teams that are traveling and all these different things that go together, we can't have starting and stopping because these things are planned out in so much in advance that things, it's just going to be different, man. But you definitely have to worry with it, like Texas, man. Like, I heard that South Florida alone had like more cases than North Korea in total or so. I mean, just ridiculous things. So right now it doesn't look good. Luckily, football is a few months away still. And I think the NBA, with the bubble concept as a whole, as a concept, I don't know if you're going to be able to control a bunch of grown-ass men in Orlando, Florida. James Harden's going to be at the strip club, whether you like it or not.
Rocking the mask and everything over the beard.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the NBA concept's great, just to everybody get in the bubble. Let's get to the bubble. Let's everybody quarantine. Let's play games. And you're not going anywhere. And let's be honest, if you've read about some of the stuff, they got a pretty sick setup down there in Orlando, man. So they get to play all the golf they want. They all have personal chefs. They got movie theaters, and they'll be fine down there. But I think that alone, because you're eliminating exterior people coming into the bubble as much as possible, and you're eliminating travel in general. And that's something that Major League Baseball, we'll see what happens with Major League Baseball, because they don't have – I think originally their hub plan in Arizona wasn't terrible, but that was so long ago. That was 2 months ago, because that's how long this has been going on for. So it wasn't a bad concept, but again, it's going to be difficult with travel and how these leagues go about it. But again, you just cannot just shut it down, because there's going to be positive tests, and we'll see. But things in danger right now, man. I'm just afraid that the Lions are like 6-2, and then the season gets canceled.
Browns and Lions will probably be 8-0, and then the season will get canceled, because that's the way shit happens for us as Browns and Lions fans. But you hit it on the head when you talk about how South Florida has more cases than North Korea. And that's why are tests rising right now? It's because Americans prefer their individualism over the greater united good, because everyone's like, well, they can't hold me back. It's a free country. I can do whatever I want. And unfortunately, there's so many people, and probably people watching this show right now on my Facebook, who have said that, actually posted on Facebook, wear the damn mask. And to NFL and NBA players, when you're traveling and you're in hotels, stay social distant, wear a mask, do what you can to keep yourself from getting sick.
They won't.
Like, this is
Chris Paul is going to be on the snitch hotline, though. He's going to be on that snitch hotline.
Yeah, dude. I don't blame him.
He's going to be like, hey, listen, Carmelo, him and Dame Lillard were over there. They were pretty close. I'd say it was like 4.5 to 5 feet.
I forgot Melo was even on the Blazers. Like, that's how long ago it was. Like, I was like, oh, maybe Melo signed with the Lakers, now that Avery Bradley's not come back. I'm like, oh, wait, he's already on a roster.
No, the Pipes signed with the Lakers, dude.
It made me so happy I wanted to throw soup. I mean, that's how great of news that was. But yeah, dude, just for everyone, like, stop with the short-term plan for the long term. And I know it sucks. Dude, there's so much everybody wants to do, and this year is blown. Absolutely been a terrible year. And I don't even want to get into how terrible it has been for some of us. But plan for the long term. Do the little shit now. Follow the rules for just a little bit. And hopefully this thing can go away. We can move on into our future healthier and ready to play sports and get everything back on track. I want to be able to go to sporting events. Not only just watch them on TV, I want to be able to go back.
I'll watch them.
I mean, I'll take anything right now, but how nice would it be to go to a golf course and watch something? How great would it be to go to a ballpark and watch baseball or football? I mean,
to bring something up real quick that I don't think we were going to talk about, but you just did you see the report where the NFL is going to use the first 6 to 8 rows of the stadium for base advertisement? They're going to block off the first 8 rows of every stadium and just advertise to where, they can run it on television. I wonder what those value at as far as running an advertisement 6 to 8 rows deep in a section of a football stadium. We'll have to look into that and see if we can figure that out.
We will definitely look into that.
But I mean, I guess it's interesting nonetheless. But I mean, the NFL, the one thing you got to admit about the NFL is, like you said, their one color they see is green, and they will find ways to make it. So I thought that was pretty interesting when I heard that.
Let's see if Darren Rovell's always the one guy who, will post something like that and say, hey, this is how much it is. Nothing so far. I'm going to start. He is. I'm going to start hitting him up on Twitter, just see if we can get a value on that. And then, that Jay Glazer, someone will report it before he even gets to it. But yeah,
I'm sure it's stadium by stadium based.
But how many people are going to be watching those games? I mean, and you're going to see it on Red Zone. Mm-hmm. You're going to see it on all the highlights. I mean, that's why we have the little ticker at the bottom, because all of our sponsors, you're getting seen through this thing on everywhere we send this out. Everything we talk about always goes for our sponsors underneath. NFL, just a little bit bigger than we are right now. Can't imagine how many people it gets out to. You're absolutely right. It's debatable at any moment. But you ready to move on from this?
Yeah, I am.
So we were bumming you out here with this COVID talk, and now we're going to talk about something else that has become an absolute bummer for anybody on Twitter, the Bubba Wallace saga. Or Sage, as I wrote right there. Let me fix that one real quick. But for anybody who doesn't know, Bubba Wallace is the only black NASCAR driver right now in their main series. And for anyone who watches NASCAR, we know it's a good old boy sport. It's filled with plenty of rednecks who love turning left and going around in circles. I've watched NASCAR my whole life. I like watching them turn left and go in circles, but I can't even watch it every day or every weekend like I used to. Bubba Wallace was the one who said to NASCAR, let's get rid of the Confederate flag. And they listened to him. People freaked out about it. If we're not going to have a chance to bring our Confederate flags, we're not showing up at races. So then this weekend, talking NASCAR, and there's a huge thing with the noose in his garage. Now, I don't know about you, but that doesn't look like a garage pull to me. Does that look like a garage pull to you?
No.
Okay. So we can take that down. That's not a garage pull. That, my friend, looks like a noose. And in the Southern good old boy sport, it wouldn't surprise me if someone put a noose in a black man's garage.
Correct.
So for this story to happen, 100% believable. Then the story's looked into. They have the great moment on the court or on the racetrack where, they push him around pit row. So it's a great moment for NASCAR to look inclusive, which for NASCAR to look inclusive is a hell of a thing. Because of all sports, you would expect NASCAR to be the least inclusive. But hey, it absolutely does look like a noose, Kim. Thank you for agreeing with us.
This is the same BS the NFL does when they act like they care about cancer and they act like they care about the military. It's the same damn act is what it is.
So this could have been the same act, which I'm with you. I mean, maybe it was. But for the NASCAR to look more inclusive than the NFL ever was with Colin Kaepernick is amazing to me, first of all. And then for this story to come out and the FBI to look into it, because if you see that and you're a black man, you're in NASCAR and you see a noose, FBI's got to be contacted. It's a hate crime looking thing. So white people everywhere are going crazy and saying that this is racism and that it didn't happen and Bubba Wallace is starting shit. Now, before we get into it anymore, Bubba Wallace wasn't the one who reported this. It was someone else in his picture who reported it. Correct. The problem is that Bubba Wallace is the face of this, and it turned out it wasn't technically a noose. It's just some weird way to tie a garage pull, whatever FBI wants to say. But enough with hating on Bubba Wallace. go ahead and talk about this a little bit because I'm getting frustrated.
Oh, to touch on my point earlier, when I said that NASCAR is just trying to save face here, basically, and they don't really give a damn, I believe that. I do also believe that what you saw Monday was the drivers uniting together, and I do think that was legitimate. So I don't want you to think anybody to think that I thought that was some sort of like people acting like the NFL acting like they
Fake
care.
news.
Right. So when it comes to the whole situation, NASCAR handled it so terribly just by their opening statement and basically them almost confirming that, hey, this was a hate crime and there was this news. And listen, does that look like? Yes, yes, it does. Does it seem hard that it's a coincidence that Bubba Wallace? I keep wanting to call him Bubba Watson. Bubba Wallace, that was his garage. Is that a coincidence? Maybe it is. There's pictures from the year before that show that same garage with that same pole hanging from the garage door. Maybe it is a coincidence. Again, you touched base on a kind of an ignorant overall fan base. Not every one of them, of course. When it comes to people of color. I mean, if you're a African American growing up, do you want to be a race car driver and go on to the NASCAR circuit? Because whether this is 2020 or 2050, those people are going to be around. So those people have kids, and they instill their beliefs in their children, and that is what it is. But here's the problem: you said it correctly. CDC guidelines wouldn't even allow Bubba Wallace into the garage until day of race. So he had no access. He didn't report this. There's a lot of sensitive things going on in this country right now. There's a lot of racially sensitive things going on and some terrible things. And so I think in this circumstance, there's certainly heightened, what's the word I'm looking for? People are certainly more cautious towards racism at this point than maybe they were. Maybe that's not the best way to put it.
Yeah,
everything is racist at this point. Everything is racist at this point. And it's become this, this big battle. And the problem is with with all this George Floyd stuff that we've touched on, the timing to have your one African-American NASCAR racer to have and I believe there was a study of the 27 tracks they use, 1,697 stalls. It may have been the only one.
Yeah.
So for me, that seems kind of hard to say coincidence. Again, I think the story got blown out of proportion.
That did.
But to your point, I don't think Bubba Wallace is one to deserve all the hate and blame. The one thing he did double down when he went on with Don Lemon, double down. Again, though, you showed the picture. I can see the standpoint from Bubba Wallace's crew in that, but tough situation and just the world's just such a shit place, man. Just the way people just drag people, it's just terrible. If we could all just be a little nicer to each other, it's just things are bad right now, and hate's just boiling on every side of things, and it's terrible and tragic to see. It really is.
I mean, we've talked about it. I think we talked about it yesterday. Where, dude, obviously we have this show so we can talk sports. We love talking sports. I originally got on Twitter because I love talking sports with other people. You the same. However, if you sign on to any social media right now, you're either so far to one side or the other that the middle is just completely lost. There is no middle ground. And that's what's happening with this Bubba Wallace situation. You're either racist because you don't believe him, or you're completely opposite way because you do believe him. And most people that I'm friends with on social media are like, oh, you believe this guy? Yeah, I absolutely believe this guy. And yeah, there was issues. He did double down on the fact, but it doesn't matter. It looked like a noose. He didn't report it. So for him to be the face of it, yeah, it sucks that he's going through crap. And it absolutely does suck being the only dude of color on NASCAR. It can't be easy, period. And
With a fan, he hears stuff that, I mean,
I guarantee it.
You're going down to, I mean, you're in Alabama and you're in Southern, I mean, come on. We know, I mean, we know what it is. I mean, dude, it's a bunch of hammered ass, people just get hammered from the races. I've actually seen it, talk to people. They just go and get hammered to leave before the race starts. They hang out in the infield for 3 days and they just take off. And again, I'm not trying to say that NASCAR is a fan base, is this terrible racist fan base. But I think that the realistic NASCAR fan could say that there may be a systemic problem in their sport when it comes to race, and it is what it is, man. It's a shitty just because everybody's comparing him to my man from that one terrible ass show on television.
Smollett.
Yeah, that guy. It's like, I don't think, again, he didn't just make this story up. Exactly. We can all sit here and say that kind of looked like news. And he also wasn't the guy that reported it. So the fact that he's just getting dragged into this terrible person, yes, he doubled down. I thought that was stupid as hell what he did this morning. I don't know why he would do it. But listen, the man has his own product. He's got a lot of voices in his ear right now. And so who the hell am I to say that was the worst decision? Yeah. He did what he did, and we move on, man.
Exactly. And like you said, we just all need to be better as people and nicer. Like, it's not that hard. I don't care. You're black, white, Asian. We're all one thing, and that's human beings. And we all need to understand.
You're not allowed to have a difference of opinion anymore. You're not. And it's from politics to everyday life. It's just the way it is. It's the left just hates the right, and there's no here, which I like to think you and myself try to look at from the here lens with pretty much everything, especially when you have a platform like this. And you asked me, hey, is this something we should talk about? I think it's important to talk about because I don't think anything we're saying is controversial. I think it's just the way. I mean, we sat back, we waited for the facts. Once we receive the facts, then we can actually make an honest, statement about it, and we know where we stand right now. And I think we're going to move on. But again, the problem is this Bubba Wallace, not Bubba Watson, is going to be drugged throughout for years to come.
Yeah, it's gonna. Once the fans come back,
it's going to get worse. It's going to get 100 times worse than it ever was for him. And what we can all sit here and look and say, kind of does look like the news. Although I mean, it's I get it, man. I get it. That's all I'll say about it.
Once fans come back, there's going to be a big split. There's going to be people who boo him, and there's going to be people who cheer him.
80-20. 80-20.
Negative to positive?
Yes.
Definitely a possibility. And I'm interested to see that. And
I hope they prove me wrong. I really do. I do too. That'd be awesome. I really do.
Just for everyone out there.
You know how many NASCAR races I've watched? 0. You know how many I'll ever watch? 0. That doesn't mean that I pay attention to it. I can tell you who wins. I know all these. I'm just not going to watch 500 damn loops, but I watch some jackasses and hit a golf ball around for 9 hours every day.
And you know what? That's fine. You're allowed to do that. That's a great thing. We're allowed to think what we want, but wait on issues like these. Wait for all the facts.
You have to.
And I get the problem now. I know a lot of people are all like, "Oh, it's the media's fault. It's the media's fault." And I'm always like, "No, you can't blame the media for everything." But in this situation,
yes, you can.
In a lot of situations now, because of the way media works, everybody wants to be first. You got to get that story out there. You got to jump to it. You got to be the first one out there. And as someone who's worked in media, that was my biggest issue, is I didn't want to always be the first one out there because I knew it was more important for me to gather all the facts to make sure I had the story correct before I jumped to anything.
Example, baseball was back last week. Mm-hmm. Baseball was back. We were like, baseball is back. And then they're like, nah, we're not agreeing to that shit. It's
it was like 15 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. The whole situation's terrible. And again, this is the sad part for me for NASCAR. And again, I'm not going to act like I'm this super big NASCAR guy. But NASCAR, like we've talked about, had a wonderful opportunity. They're back racing. They had this opportunity to kind of like, yeah, we're going to eliminate the Confederate flag. We're going to kind of unite. And then this just blew it all up. It blew it all up from what was, I mean, we know the whole NASCAR saving face, like we're talked about, right?
Mm-hmm.
With everything going on, they're like, okay, we can get rid of the Confederate flag. I mean, Jesus Christ, why the hell? Why do you allow them anyway? It doesn't matter. That's the reason they got rid of it. If George Floyd didn't die, people weren't protesting, shit wasn't just going crazy in the world, NASCAR wouldn't be getting rid of anything.
Probably.
So let's make that clear. Now, NASCAR, again, they had this beautiful road where there's only golf and NASCAR to watch, man. Those are the only two live sports we have. And just like MLB is just screwing themselves, it's just like NASCAR. NASCAR just alienated 50% of their fan base.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are.
I mean, we're talking NASCAR. That's the craziest thing about it. But the problem is we're not actually talking who won the race last week. I don't know. I couldn't tell you because
Bubba Wallace finished like 14th.
Everything's getting overshadowed. And yeah, you're absolutely right. It's sad that it took the death of George Floyd to really get this all to finally come out. And we're talking racial divide and racial issues. And that's why we were going to have Dominic Alford, former Browns lineman, on tonight. He wasn't able to make it. He said he'd come on later. He's got a great story to tell about what happened when he dealt with racism in high school. And I say a great story about racism. It's only because of what he did to get back at the dude who decided to say some not so friendly things to him. But for everyone, take this time and stop thinking, oh, well, why do these people care now? Why does Black Lives Matter? Oh, all lives matter. Yeah, all lives matter, but not until Black lives matter more to people than what they have for 150 years now. I mean, people want to talk that, oh, well, I didn't own slaves. My ancestors might not own slaves and all that. But look at the fact that for most of our parents, people our parents' age, they still went to school in segregated schools at first. Like, it's not that long that segregation and civil rights were something people are battling for. So for people to fight now, it's something that's been long overdue. Until we all treat each other equally, until we're all nice to each other, as you said earlier, nothing's going to change. And for Bubba Wallace to come out and want the Confederate flag gone in NASCAR, understandable. Because though it may not have started as a sign of hate, it has become a sign of hate for more people than it isn't. You see trucks in Mississippi, and I was going to talk about Mississippi tonight because it's National Catfish Day. But you see trucks in Mississippi with the rebel flag on them, and 80-20, it's racism to not racism. I mean, that's just the truth of the matter. And we're just two white dudes talking about this. I get it, but
well, just like, what is the benefit to me? What is the benefit of keeping it around? What when you talk about a Confederate flag, and we're not going to get into statues being ripped down and shit. Yeah. I don't want to talk. We don't want to be at a political show. It's not about that. But the fact of the matter is what's going on is terrible. It needs to be fixed. So how it's fixed, you are never going to change the minds of a certain group of people. There's always going to be racism. I don't give a shit what we do. My kids, there's going to be racism because of the way people are raised and taught. And there are certainly places down south where it's not safe for people of color to be, and that's not changing. Mm-hmm. But as far as when you look back, it's like, what benefit is this bringing us to have these people waving the Confederate flag? Mm-hmm. What image does this portray of us as NASCAR? And how do we as NASCAR, how are we perceived from the public and the young kids? Yep. How are we perceived? Are we perceived as a sport of equality and fairness? or are we kind of perceived as you? And you hit the nail on the head. NASCAR is perceived as a redneck racist sport. Whether it's fair or not, that's the way they're perceived, right?
Yeah.
Golf's perceived as a boring ass old man sport. Just the way it's perceived. It's not a big deal. It's just the way it is. And so when you're NASCAR and you sit back and you say, if people are viewing us that way, what do we need to do to change to have people view us in a different lens?
Yep.
And for me, something a simple step is to eliminate the Confederate flag to make some of these changes. And if it stirs up your fan base, then it kind of confirms the stereotype in NASCAR.
100%. And something you said is, what does it say about NASCAR that they let them wave the Confederate flag? What does it say about us as Americans that they're still waving a Confederate flag that's seen as a symbol of hate at this point? And yeah, like I said earlier, it wasn't originally perceived as a sign of hate. But as Americans, it's okay. It's history. You can understand that we had that history. However, you don't need to celebrate it. And that's with the Confederate statues coming down and all that. You don't need to celebrate your negative parts of history. Germany doesn't celebrate the negative parts of their history. They still talk about it. It happened. History happened. Doesn't mean you need to celebrate the negative parts of it. And for America as a whole, we need to become together as one. United, we stand. Divided, we fall. And we have never been more divided in this country than I feel like we are now.
Preach.
Don't make a black man come out and preach it to the Lord. Don't make him come out. I'll get all out. I'll get the preacher out. But I haven't brought the preacher out in a long time. And speaking of the preacher, let's move on from this real quick. Let's finish the show on a high note. Bro, you like catfish?
Yes. Fried
catfish.
Like fried catfish.
Absolutely. Today is National Catfish Day, and in honor of National Catfish Day, I am going to tell a fun story about last time I was in Mississippi, which we were just talking about a little bit earlier. I was with my friend Jermaine. We were at his grandma's church. I'm the only white dude there, but they included me in one of the most wonderful dinners I've ever had. These people, they go to church, and right after, they cook up these huge meals. And I got this fried catfish with these bacon grease-covered collard greens and mac and cheese. And my God, man, my fat ass was the happiest man I ever have been. One of the happiest days of my life, probably up there with my kids. That's how damn good the food was. So Mississippi, great catfish. What's the best catfish you can remember having, bro?
Well, I worked at Cracker Barrel for 8-9 years, and yeah, I saw. You know how much, dude? You would not imagine the amount of catfish that's sold at that place on a Sunday.
Sure.
On a Sunday after church,
that
is the most popular dish they would ever imagine. And
more than the Sunday chicken?
Yes.
Oh, Sunday chicken's great, though.
Home-style chicken with the two sides, and either biscuits or cornbread is where it's at. But yeah, no, Cracker Barrel.
We're both drilling on camera right now. Like,
it's pretty elite. But yeah, no, that was we pumped some fried catfish out of that place.
Yeah. Nothing like good meal. It's also National Bomb Pop Day. And
I have some of those in my freezer.
I have the watermelon bomb pops in my freezer. We had those.
Yes, I have. I've had all bomb pops and all varieties.
With the weird fake seeds in them that I'm still not sure what they are or why I like them, but
they're awesome. Yeah.
They are.
Yeah,
anything awesome. Watermelon, give it to me all day. Brother, anything else you want to talk about tonight?
That's it, man. I feel that was a good show. I enjoyed it. It was good.
I think it was a fun show once I got my speech back on track here. I was slurring my words at the beginning of the show, but it's a good thing I got you to carry the show when I can't. Thank you, everybody who listened to the show tonight. If you're listening on the audio version, thank you. I hope we kind of described things a little better, which we probably didn't with some of the Lamar Jackson highlights. We showed some Lamar Jackson highlights earlier. Lamar Jackson's a good football player. Thank you for listening, everyone. Thanks for dealing with us. Actually talking, serious issues. And it's not something we do a lot. We talk football.
That's why sports need to come back. Sports need to come back.
But it's good for us to know that we can branch out and we can talk about things that matter, because shit matters right now, because we got young kids who we need to make this a better world for. Thank you for listening. Goodbye. We will see you next week live 9 to 10-ish on our Facebook page, fb.me/FCFS pod. You can catch the re-air of this anytime on that page. You can watch our beautiful faces there, Or you can now check us up on YouTube, which I will post on Twitter at Somerville CLE, at FCFS Pod. I'm sure Drew will retweet it at Detroit Dave 7. And if you're listening to an audio version, check us out Spotify, Apple Pods, Google Pods, iHeartRadio, and Anchor.m. And like to give our MVP of the award tonight to Kim Carlo for being a huge part of the show with all the comments.
Kim Carlo with the MVP.
So MVP for the show tonight. Thank you very much. And you're right with this comment. It is not that hard to be kind. Just do it. And remember, as always, if you live the life you love, you'll love the life you live. Good night, kids.